What is up, goalies? Welcome back to the DIY Goalie podcast. We have got Connor Munday back with us today, so we're going to kind of have another back and forth episode. Um, we're probably going to have a bit more solo episodes. Connor's going to help out a little bit more too, because our in-person goalie coaching company, True North Goaltending, we're working on getting a synthetic ice goalie training facility going. So don't have a whole heck of a lot of time to schedule other guests, but we still obviously want to get you guys the content and still keep putting out some good episodes for you guys. So um, what we're going to do today, because we kind of touched on it a bit last week with Ian Gordon. And for those of you that follow our email list, our June email list touched on the topic of practice habits. And so, what we wanted to kind of do is build off of that a little bit and kind of touch on just habits in our game, both on off the ice, and just what we can do to kind of build that better mindset, build those habits, so we have a consistent foundation to build off of, and that we can be consistent day in and day out going to the rink when it comes to performing. So for those of you who don't subscribe to the email list, you can head to the diygoalie.com/email and sign up for that. We do send out a practice plan every month, and we also kind of do a little, exclusive type little mini article in the email, and we just do general updates and stuff like that. So if we ever have a sale on our merch or on our course or anything like that, that'll be communicated through there. So if you guys want to sign up for that, again, that's at the diygoalie.com/email. So maybe what we'll do, Connor, to start off here is maybe we'll start with the practice habits, and
Sure.
we'll kind of build from there.
Okay.
Um, so the five kind of things we touched on in the email that we sent out was moving with the puck, playing out rebounds, communication, quality over quantity, and maximizing your downtime in practice to get better. Um, so why don't you take one of those, Connor, that you like, and just build off of that and kind of talk about what you think's important, and how goalies can kind of build better habits to have better practices.
Well, I think the first one that you mentioned was just moving with the puck, right? And so I'm not entirely sure what you were referring to on it, whether you're just talking about stick handling, just kind of playing with the puck when you're going through just warm ups on the ice or in practice or whatever. But I think just getting a good feel for the puck, I think, is kind of first and foremost. You want to be confident in your equipment. And you want to make sure that all your equipment's going to be working properly in the way that it is. And so I know that, like, when I've jumped out on the ice, I've taken a shooter on the side at the start of the game. After I've taken some shots in the net and get hit in the dome a couple of times, I take a shooter aside and I say, okay, let's do 3-4 on the blocker hand, 3-4 on the glove hand, maybe 2 or 3 in the chest, whatever, how much time I have left before the clock runs down, the whistle blows. Same thing, in practice as well. You just take that before taking the warm up shots with the rest of the team. Just if you're able to take a player or a coach or somebody and just able to just get a feel for the puck in your equipment, just feel it in your equipment. It just internally and maybe subconsciously, it just builds that confidence, right? It's like, okay, I'm not struggling with my blocker hand, I'm not struggling with my glove hand. Everything feels how it's supposed to. And then even if you're a puck playing goaltender, just moving around with the puck, shooting off the boards, off the glass, shooting at the net, however goaltenders shoot with the puck. That would be the one that I think would be important. Is just getting a feel for the puck over anything.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into maximizing your downtime too. I mean, those little kind of 2-minute increments that you have at the start or at the end of practice. If you're gonna do kind of what Connor said there, work on, you know, 10 shots to the block or 10 to the glove, 10 to the stick on each side, stuff like that, right? You can really simplify, your game, simplify your approach. You're working on your tracking and really working on the tracking, like glue the eyes to the puck right from the blade of the stick, right to contact with your body. Make sure you're making the save out in front of your body, right? Watch it off of your body and find where your rebound is. Start your recovery. Even if you don't necessarily recover to the rebound, just make sure you find it. All of that good stuff. So the other thing too, like for me moving with the puck, when I was mentioning it in the article, I was talking more about when there are passes during drills.
Oh, okay. I went the complete
So
wrong way.
but that's
Sorry.
okay, because you know what? That's good though, because bringing up, getting touches on the puck, right? Like that's another thing I think goalies, we don't do enough of necessarily. Like there's a lot of goalies that are afraid to play the puck, and that's mostly because they're not good at it or they're not comfortable at it because they don't practice it enough, right? So that's something that's good to talk about too, because I know when I played, I was not a good puck playing goalie, and there's a lot of times I got myself into trouble,
Yeah.
right? And it's because I didn't practice it enough. And a little bit of a tangent here, but part of that goes to, cross training. Like a lot of times we specialize a little too early and a little too much. Have your kids, or if you're a beer league goalie or an older goalie or anything like that, or if you've got a kid who's a goalie, get them to be out, play out a little bit, right? Even if it's like ball hockey in the summer or whatever at the ODR,
Mm-hmm.
work on those hands, work on your ability to shoot the puck and stick handle the puck, because it makes a big difference when you're playing, because you can, get the puck out of your zone quick and make your life a heck of a lot easier. That's for sure.
Sure. So okay, so you were going back to puck movement. So you're just saying like just following with the passes and just kind of getting comfortable in your movement. Is that what you were going on with that there?
Yeah. So my moving with the puck was referring to, when you're in a drill in practice, a puck goes, from the corner up to the blue line, say the defenseman walks the line and shoots. A lot of goalies, what they do is they start already set on the defenseman at the blue line and just wait for him to take that shot, right?
Right.
And a lot of times goalies miss that opportunity to work on their movement, to try and beat the pass, to get set before that pass is there, right? If you have time to in that practice, that pass from low to high, start on your post, start set on the guy in the corner, push out to the top of the crease when that pass is made up to the blue line there. And then as he walks the line, follow him with shuffles. I see a lot, pretty much every single young goalie in practices. They know, because it's structured, they know where the guy's going to be. So they just stand waiting for that instead of following the puck. And that's a habit that will make you better, like way better than if you don't do anything at all, or than your peers if they're not doing anything at all.
Well, it's just visualizing that puck, right? That's the biggest thing out of all of it. I mean, like I had the opportunity to go to the World Juniors here in Edmonton in the summertime, actually, and it was Team Canada against Latvia. And I was watching. Who was I watching? I was watching. I think it was Patrick Berslins on Latvia. As I try to quickly pull this up, just in between whistles or in between TV timeouts, you just watched him. And I have a video of it on my Instagram. Um, just watched him just go through his. Oh, come on, where is it here? Sorry, I'm professional at this. I swear. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. It
That's a
was.
loose term.
It was. Hey, it was Patrick Berzins from Team Latvia, and what he was just doing just during the TV timeout, he was just going in and out of his posts in his RVH, working on his edges. I didn't get a full clip of it. I just kind of caught the tail end of it, but it was just stuff like that, and I'm assuming in that moment he was imagining just a pass from high to down low, just kind of on the short side, the post there. I'm probably reading too much more into it than needed, but that's the way that I would look at it. Is just he's getting comfortable getting in and out of his post, using again the downtime, just to work on the small things like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was kind of sort of imagine a high to low just down into his post, so he's able to get a nice good seal in his RVH. So it's just small things like that. And then that's why we as coaches, my standard is always, okay, you're starting on the post, you're imagining a pass from the corner up to the blue line, and then a pass into the slot. How do we go about that, right? And so you have to, as goalies, we have to use our imaginations a little bit. And so that's what that's just the biggest thing with me there for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll touch more on routines too a little bit later, because that's a good habit to get into
Mm-hmm.
too. But just like, that's why if we can get into this habit of moving with the puck in practice, because then if we're doing it during a drill, that's the nice thing, is we don't have to be imagining it. It's a real time, we can push to that player and try and beat that pass, and we can work on pushing to the blade of the stick. We can work on getting those feet set before that shot comes and
Right.
all of that stuff,
Yeah.
right? um so you know, the big thing is what we'll talk about lots, and what we've already talked about a few times on these episodes, is that goalie development time, and then even just regular ice time in general, is so hard to come by, because they say it takes 10,000 hours, right, to become an expert at something. And when you're only getting 2 hours of ice time a week, and maybe 10 minutes of that, if you're lucky, is, some sort of goalie development outside of just a regular practice, depending on your situation, everyone's situation is different. But it means that when you have that downtime, and when you have these opportunities in practice to, push with the pass and all of that, that's what's going to help you to get better. And that's the opportunities that you need to really take advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of, we'll go into the next point here of quality over quantity, and that's kind of something similar. I know Connor and I, and probably pretty much every goalie coach out there, can go on for hours about some of the practices that are out there where there's 5 shots at once, or there's a 7-on-0 rush somehow, or yeah, whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. Um, a lot of what is out there for ice time isn't very goalie friendly. Now, we heard Gordo say last week, though, touching on how every ice time, every practice is an opportunity. Even if it's not necessarily very goalie friendly, there's still an opportunity to try and get better. So that's where this quality over quantity portion comes in. Because if you are getting 3 shots at once, set on one, track one, find the rebound from that one, and then move on to the next one that you have time to get set on, right?
Yeah.
Take the opportunity to do what you can with what you're given. And I think one thing I want to really, you know, convey with this episode is that you guys need to embrace the moment and embrace development, right? Like Gordo talked about it. If we're looking for excuses, you're not going to get better. You're not going to get the most out of the situation. So you need to embrace the situation you're in.
It's yeah. Gordo's on right on point with that. With every ice time being an opportunity, ice in all of the hockey world is scarce as is. Um,
Yeah.
and again, like you have the off ice programs, but how much of that actually translates into on ice, right? Like they're great programs, all the off ice strength and conditioning and all that, and then sense arena. But moving into the on ice, like practice is there for your development, and so it's up to you guys to make the most of it, right? Are you there just for the sake of being there, or are you there to get better in that instance? So it's um, it's just what do you want to do with it? What do you want, like what are you going to do to make the most out of the ice time that you have there? Nathan, you and I were talking off camera, is how can you, as a goaltender, make the most out of a practice when it's not a goalie friendly practice, right? You're not focusing on the X1, X2, X3 out of the corner, going below the circle, through the circle, and above the circle, and all that. You're not going into a deep dive into it, but are you focusing on the minuscule things? How was your tracking? Did you feel better on one side than you did in the other? How was your skating patterns? How'd your edges feel? Um, you know, do you think you maintained good depth? And the other thing is, like, how did you read the drills, even though they weren't goaltending specific? But in the back of your head, were you thinking, okay, I got a 2-on-1 coming in here. Is he going to make a pass, or is he going to shoot? What are my threats? What are just what's happening essentially in the zone as these guys are coming in on me, even if it's 1-on-0, whether it's the what is it, the Team Canada drill or whatever it is. um okay, where how am I doing when I face up against a shooter there? How much net am I taking away? Just thinking of, my buddy Mario from SOS Hockey talked about it when they talk about hockey IQ, as they call it their checklist or checkdowns or whatever. Is that as soon as that puck's coming into your zone, what are you checking off on your list to make sure that you are in the most ample opportunity to make that save? Start getting into that habits. Goaltenders, and if, in Goal Magazine, their pro reads do a heck of a good job with that, and showing what does a goaltender see when the play is developing in their own zone. So even just as something as simple as that is like starting to build your own checklist, starting to build your own, yeah, checklist is the word that I'm going to use here. When the play starts developing in your zone, and for you, like the I think you and I talked about in the last episode, is like the best goalie coach on the ice is yourself. What are you doing to help make yourself better? Because only you can do it. And I think kind of start learning the I start developing the IQ, and starting to learn how things are starting to develop in your own end, is a massive point for goaltenders there.
Yeah, and that's like when we talk about these practice habits, because we want to try and get the most out of practice. So that, that's the time to experiment with
Mm-hmm.
something, right? Like if you've never really thought about, having a mental checklist or anything like that when the play comes down, the next time your team's doing 2-on-1s or 3-on-2s, run yourself through, like, say, where's the threat? What hand are the guys coming down? Like, who is it? Where's my defenseman? Stuff like that. Like, make yourself mental notes and see if it works for you. It might not. You might be a goalie that works best by not thinking at all. Great. Then you've at least tried it out. You've noted it doesn't work for you. Well, now you can try something else out that might work for you. And that's the thing with practice too, is you guys got to really maximize what you get out of it. And that's where a lot of the high elite level athletes, like, we've heard the stories about Kobe Bryant and how he just goes out and he would hit however many free throws starting at 4 a.m. and then he'd go and do the same, for 3 pointers and all of that stuff, right? And it's consistent across the board for high level athletes, is they have these habits developed that they make the most out of any development time that they have. um, So just kind of building off of what Connor was talking about too with that
Sorry,
mental checklist.
before
Yeah.
going on to that, and I think just one other habit with that is just keeping yourself engaged. Right. I don't
Yeah.
know if we have that specifically on the list or if it may fall into a different category, but just keeping yourself engaged. Again, there was another good in goal podcast. I think it was Corrine Schroeder from PWHL New York was talking about, just particularly when the play is happening down in the other end for long periods of time, your mind tends to slip a little bit, right? And then maybe you're not as prepared when the play starts coming back in your own end. So just doing something just to keep himself engaged when something's happening down at the other end. And Corians, and I thought it was kind of interesting because I used to do this for a living with the Northern Alberta Tomahawks, was doing play by play. She did her own play by play down while the play was happening down the other end. And I thought that was really interesting because she's doing something to keep herself engaged, but she's also, for lack of a better term, narrating to herself just kind of what it is that she's seeing developing happening at the other end there, and she's just building on that IQ.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's again something you guys can try out next practice. See if it works for you, right? If it does,
Next
great. Start
Jim Houston's
implementing
or Doc Emmerich's or
it. Yeah.
Chris
Yeah.
Cuthbert's.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, just kind of building off of what Connor was talking about there with the checklist too. One thing that we talked about in that little email article was communication too. And I know I'm bad for it. I like to make the joke lots that we can't trust our defensemen and, whatever. But at the end of the day, I am, just being a little facetious there because we do need them, right? And they are a big part of our team. And our lives would be significantly harder without most of the defensemen. I know some of them make our lives pretty hard, but but
Yeah.
practice is a great time to get on the same page and to work on your communication and to talk to your guys, right? Like a good breakout makes a massive difference in a game. So if you guys have something as simple as forehand, backhand, or leave it when there's a dump in, it's easy enough. Everybody knows they're on the same page, right? You stop it, they yell forehand, you're dishing a forehand pass to the guy who should be posted up in the corner or wherever it is that your systems work out to be, right? Um, the other thing too is just on odd man rushes, 3-on-2s, 2-on-1s. Talk with your defenseman. Say, hey, there's a trailer. That guy's driving the back door. Maybe he's playing the higher guy and somebody's sneaking in back door and you can get him to pick that up. Or, tell the guy to take the pass, right? Because you've got the shot, or maybe you think that there's an opportunity for your defenseman to close off the guy with the puck on a 2-on-1. So you tell him, hey, close him off or whatever. I mean, you guys have to come up with the terminology that works for you guys. But that's where practice comes into play when you're doing system stuff, rushes, when you're working on breakouts, right? Like get on the same page, talk to your defenseman, tell them when they're screening you, anything like that, right? It's easier to do that in a game when you're already doing it in practice, and you'll be in a much better spot.
Yeah, definitely. If you're able to start building that repertoire with your defenseman now, and um, start be able to start using keywords or anything that you and your defenseman are able to communicate with in order to successfully turn the play that goes into an offensive breakout. There was not exactly goalie specific, but there was a when in my old league that I coached, and there was the team at a High Prairie. Whenever they know their keyword was what was it? I think it was like scramble or something, and they only used that term when they noticed that a team was struggling to control the puck in their own end. So they used the terms. I think it was scramble or something to that effect. And so then that's when they knew to start pressuring and start hammering the pressure down on the team that had the puck because they weren't able to start controlling the puck properly. So it's something to that effect that you as goaltenders should start doing with your defenseman, whether it's off the wall or forehand, backhand, or anything like that. Like Nathan was saying, that's a good thing. That's a good thing there. I mean, like us as goaltenders, we're able to quarterback that play. That's why when you see goalies like Stuart Skinner or even Mike Smith back with the Oilers, and his puck playing ability, because they were able to turn the puck back into an offensive threat, coming out of their zone.
Yeah. So off of that, then we'll maybe I'll get you to start this one off this time, so I'm not hogging it so much. But
it's your podcast. You just do what you want.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm the boss.
Yes, master. Yes, master.
Yeah, the last point we'll touch on for the practice habits, and then we'll kind of move on to some other habits that'll be good for our game. But playing out rebounds, I know, and just battling in general. Like, I know a lot of the elite level goalies, it's on record as to just how much these guys hate getting scored on and how much they battle to keep those pucks out, even in practice when, you're expected to let goals in, they still hate it. Right. So I don't know, Connor, what is playing out the rebounds and battling in practice mean for you?
Well, I think it just, out of anything, it just instills that compete level, is what it is. Like you and I have talked about it, and I've done it in my own sessions where like that you don't stop fighting for that puck until it's either cross the goal line in your net, or it's outside of the blue line, or it's out of the blue line in the neutral zone. That's the only time. Well, you never really even stop competing for that. Or if you cover it, yeah, sure, we can talk about that too. If you want to make the save, then But anyways, made me lose my train of thought now, jerk. It's just stuff like that, particularly when I do drills and we have more than one shot. I don't really necessarily have the first shot rebound played out a whole lot, but it's still a good idea to at least look where that puck went before you move into the next shot. So just start getting used to the idea of that puck is yours. It's nobody else's puck but yours. I love him and pet him and I name him whatever the Yeti called him at the time. No, George. I love him and I name him George. I know I'm ruining this podcast. I'm sorry.
That's also going to go over the heads of any of the young goalies.
Hey, but you know what? The older goalies will get a kick out of it, so you're welcome. But it's just things like that. Like every drill that I do, I will always play out that second shot, or unless it's a really, really good rebound that the goalie gave up on the first shot, I will always play it. And it's important. I think it's important for goaltenders to get used to the idea of just battling and competing for that puck and never stop competing unless it's one of those three things that we mentioned. And that's in goalie practices, that's in just in regular practices, small area games. It's just you are competing for your space. And so if you start battling for it now in practice, however that takes shape, that will translate into a game.
Yeah. Here's my thing with that is when it comes to the battle, the compete, anything like that, a lot of people argue that you can't teach it. And yes, it's not like an X's and O's thing. Like you can't really break it down like you can break down a T push, for example, but you can learn it by virtue of being in that situation. And that's where this sort of playing out the rebounds comes into play. I know not every practice drill is set up to be able to play out the rebound, but anytime you get a chance, even if your players in practice aren't going for that rebound, just make your recovery, right? Recover how you would normally, get set on it, then get set for that next rep. Because in a game, things happen and it's unpredictable, right? I mean, yes, we try and recreate things when we run goalie sessions. Yes, we try and, use hindsight when we watch video and break stuff down. And we do have a a skill set, like a toolbox that we can use in various situations and give ourselves the best chance. But at the end of the day, it's all about stopping the puck. And sometimes that doesn't look pretty. And that in itself is a skill. Like what Dominic Hasek did is a skill. It's not like it makes coaches like us pull our hair out, but at the same token, he's accomplishing his job, which is stopping the puck.
It's
And it,
just it's just a matter of how much do you want it.
yeah,
That's just what it boils down to at the end of the day. How much do you want it? Whatever it may be. Is it the puck? Is it the championship? Just how much effort are you going to pull in? And then just build it. Just touching, excuse me, just touching on that point about, even if they don't play out the rebound on the second shot, it's always a good idea to always get eyes on it,
yeah,
right? It just however that takes form, and we talked about it in the last episode that you and I did, is building having good tracking. You're
yeah,
watching it in, watching it out, and you may not go into how you actually recover it, but if you're watching it out the same way, watching it go out of your body for whatever reason, the same way you're watching it in, just that alone right there is you're getting head trajectory on it. And
yeah.
that's that's just most important part there. I think just start building on that habit. So always watch where that puck's going.
And that's an underrated and kind of under, I don't even know
Taught,
the word I'm looking
under
for. Not
taught.
taught, but like a lot of goalies don't have that skill
Yeah,
of watching the puck out. And part of that is, yeah, not really being taught, but part of it is just not even thinking about the importance of it, because in practice we get shelled with so many pucks, right? That
mm-hmm.
it's just like, oh, puck comes into me, that's the end of that. But in a game, it's not the end of that. I mean, it is if you swallow it up and you get a whistle, and great, we all want to do that, but realistically that's not always going to happen. So that's when you guys need to develop those habits of, where's that puck? I got to get to it, but I got to get to it in, obviously the best manner I can to give myself an opportunity to make that second save if there is one.
Right.
Um, so that's where, playing out the rebounds and competing really comes into play is, it also kind of is the best way to recreate that game situation to a certain extent, because in a game things are unpredictable. Pucks hit shin pads. Pucks get deflected. There's flying screens. There's rebounds. Right. There's a whole lot more chaos than there is in practice. So that's why it's really important that you guys develop that as a habit too. Moving on, since we probably spent more time on practice than we should have, but at the same token, I think you all know when goalies get talking, especially about goaltending, it's hard to get them to stop. So,
Never heard of
uh,
such a dastardly thing in my life. What are
yeah.
you talking about?
So, one thing I wanted to touch on, because especially in the younger goalies, and actually a lot in the beer league goalies too, and mostly the beer league guys, is more so a time thing, but the routines, and especially the pregame routines, right? Like I I have a goalie that I work with, and he'll listen to this and he'll be excited that I shouted him out. I won't call him out by name, but he goes to the rink, and this kid is like 10, I think, or just about to turn 10. And he he takes the onus on himself. He tells his parents he wants to be at the rink 2 hours before, and he does ball work. He listens to music. He has a routine, a set routine that he does every game. And even if he has a couple rough practices, because his dad will, think the sky's falling down, and he'll come to me and be like, oh my God, he looks like he's in a rut. And then he gets to a game that weekend and his lights out. And a lot of that is that routine, because it's that psychological switch. It's game time, right? And if you guys can figure out a way with your situation, so however much time you have before a game, if you can figure out a way to properly get yourself ready to go, so stretching, ball work, or anything that works your eyes and your cognitive function, anything like that, um, getting yourself into the right mindset. So if you need music to amp you up, if you're like the hard rock or whatever, or if you need something to mellow you out, because everybody's different. Some guys like to get amped up, some like to just mellow out and stop thinking, right? And you got to kind of find what works for you. But like me personally, I would go to the rink, and this was junior in college, so we were there like 2.5 hours before the game. I would get my workout gear on, so the shorts and the shirt. I would foam roll, I would stretch out while I was listening to music. Then, we'd do our team meetings and stuff. I'd get my bottom halves on, then I'd listen to music again while I went and did some ball work, got the top halves on, went out for warm up. And that's what I did every single game. I knew it was game time, right? So again, you guys experiment, figure out what works for you, but have that routine, get into that habit of doing stuff to prep you for that game. Stretching, get your body ready, you know, mindset, visualization, positive self-talk, whatever that is for you that works, figure it out and get it implemented. Do it every time. Do something to work on your eyes and your brain, right? The cognitive and the tracking portion of it. All of this stuff will help you kind of establish consistency. And as goalies, that's when we're successful, is when we're consistent, right? So again, it just gets you into that right mindset. It's a good habit to get into, and it'll help your game out for sure.
Just doing something with purpose, I think, is
Yeah.
the way that I would boil down to it. And when I was coaching Tomahawks Junior A and Spruce Grove Eagles Junior B, that's a lot of what we focused on, is what are we doing with purpose and what are we doing that'll translate back to on ice. Ball drills, making sure that we're stretching, uh, getting ourselves in the right mindset. And Pete Fry is one of the best guys to do it in getting yourselves in the right mindset. Um, I haven't really listened to any of his stuff lately, but I know that he's been again within Gold Magazine a lot, and so he's had some really interesting stuff to say when it comes to that, and uh, just all that type of stuff, really.
Yeah. So we touched on pregame routines. What other routines do you think are important?
For off ice,
Just in general, could be
just
on
in
ice,
general.
could be off ice. Just a good routine, a good habit to get into for a routine. So like
Well,
sleep is a
yeah.
great
Well,
routine to get into.
sleep and nutrition.
Yeah,
That's a big one, and I might not be the most qualified person to talk about this, but um,
me neither.
yeah, fair enough. But definitely making sure that you're well rested for the game. And I know some guys take a pregame nap, however long that may be, an hour, half an hour, 2 hours, whatever. And then as well as nutrition as well. That was a big thing. And I'll kind of change this a little bit from hockey and I'll translate it to karate actually. Because a very long time ago, my dad and I were in karate together, and we always had chicken, rice, and what else do we have? We had chicken, rice, and maybe like not like spaghetti or anything, but like something. It's like some kind of um, noodle salad thing, and that's always what we had every Monday and Thursday at 5 o'clock before we left to my elementary school that was just down the road to do karate for a half hour. And the reasoning behind that is because you had your protein in there, you had your carbohydrates, and so it wasn't food that was just going to sit heavy in your stomach, and that provided you the proteins and everything else that you needed to function the most effectively as possible. And so the similar thing was for hockey. Was the same type of deal. I know some guys like to have pasta before a game. I tried that once and I puked the day after. So wasn't my thing. And then I decided to have it again the next time I had it, that I played a game, because I actually did pretty well that game. But besides the point is there are just making sure that you're taking care of your body and just making sure that it's getting the most efficient fuel possible in order for you to perform at your best. Um, Water, obviously, another big one. I know that there's like this quench stuff and the BioSteel and Gatorade and whatever else. I'm personally not a fan of any of that stuff, but I know that there are some people that do like it, and there probably is some nutritional or some kind of value behind it, but you don't want to be, like down in a, like I just did a McDonald's double quarter pounder with Cheetos with fries and a medium Coke before game day or anything, because you just don't want anything that's going to sit heavy in your stomach, and that's going to end up taking away more energy than it is going to be giving you.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going for with the routines outside of just the pregame routines, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing, and obviously at the end of the day, like playing hockey, playing goal is just like it's a sport, it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And there is an element of you can for sure take it too seriously and get caught up in it, but at the same token, it's just when we talk about good habits, like when it comes to your performance, we need to make sure that, as Connor said, we're taking care of ourselves, and that also means taking a break and resting and walking away from the rink for a little bit and all that stuff, right? Like make it a habit to have some you time, to have some downtime. Make it a habit to eat right. Make it a habit to be hydrated. And for some people too, that's more than just the water. Like I know Scott Wedgwood has talked about his dehydration issues, and I know Sergei Bobrovsky goes through a ridiculous amount of sweat and weight loss during games and all of that stuff. And for those guys, water just isn't enough, right? So they have a routine in which they, have salts and whatever else that they're doing on top of the water to make sure that they're, you know, getting the hydration that they need. And this is stuff that, again, it's all going to be personal. You guys are going to have to experiment. You're going to have to figure out what works for you, but establish that routine and establish those habits so that what does work for you continues to work and allows you to be consistent.
Well, just what's going to maximize your efforts,
Yeah.
and that's across all, and that's across the entire board there. With that, off ice, on ice, pregame, postgame, just what are you doing that's going to maximize your effort to be the best athlete that you can be in
Yeah.
whatever sport that you so choose.
And that goes with off ice, workouts too. And again, when you're off the ice, what are you doing that's gonna help? And again, sometimes that's away from hockey in general, like the cross training. Like if you guys can get into another sport or another activity that's working your brain, your vision, your athleticism, like anything like that, that's also going to be translating to positive benefits for your game when you do get back onto the ice. And that's, again, it's all going to depend on your situation, what you like to do, and all that stuff. But just find yourself a routine that works. Find one that's going to, help you get better, and make sure that, you're enjoying yourself at the rink. You're putting your best effort forward, as Connor had said. Um, I think maybe
It
the
just
last one.
Sorry, just
Oh,
before you
yeah.
jump into, like, again, like there are places, and there's a bunch of, again, off ice kind of internet programs for that. Like Maria Mountain is phenomenal with that. Again, In Goal magazine, I think they have some off ice some stuff with that. Pete Fry, another one, goalie mindset guy there, and then just even depending on who you talk to, I guess just I went to Vimy Ridge Academy, and so they emphasize that a lot. The taking care of your body, eating the proper foods, and then even just the workout stuff with it, along with that as well. That was a really key component in terms of what they were teaching there, and I could only imagine at places like St. Francis Xavier, Mount Carmel, Louis Saint Laurent, or all those places would be something similar.
For those outside of the Edmonton area,
Outside of the Edmonton area, sure, all right.
those are all sports academies in the Edmonton area.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what we'll do to wrap things up here is we'll talk about good habits for mindset and more of the mental side of things. One thing I think that, and I'll be a little bit of a hypocrite for a minute because I never once did this and when I played, but I can definitely see the value in it, especially for certain athletes, is, the journaling. Get into the habit of, you know, writing down, especially when you're trying to establish a routine that works for you. Write down what you did, write down how you felt, write down how you played. you know I like take a 10 minutes before, a game, like maybe 2 hours before or something. Take 10 minutes and write down how your day was, what you ate, like when you ate and what else you did and stuff like that. And then after the game, do the same and reflect back, right, on the game and your day and your prep and all of that stuff. And then even just in general, like, it doesn't even have to be about hockey. You can, like, I know a lot of people do the gratitude journaling just to get them into a more positive mindset. Find one, two, three things, whatever it is, during the day that, were good moments, were something positive, something you're grateful for, all of that stuff, right? And the big thing with mindset and getting into good habits with mindset is being able to shift how you think and be a little bit more positive and also a little bit more, you know reflective, I guess, because that'll really allow you, like, once you have that personal reflection, once you're really able to, you know assess for yourself what's working and how you feel and all of that stuff, then you can really hone in on now branching out to the other stuff we talked about, the pregame routines, the on ice approach. All of that stuff starts to take care of itself almost, right? Because now you have the ability to self reflect and to understand what's working, what's not, and have a foundation to build off of from there.
It goes beyond just the athlete, and it goes to the support system as well.
Yeah.
Because and I'm going to call out all the goalie parents here for a minute, scared for my life, is it's so easy for goalie parents and goalies in general to focus on what you did wrong in that game. And that's just with goaltending, and that's with every position, and just how the game went in general. It's like, oh well, little Johnny should have T-pushed instead of shuffled, or little Michael should have he should have made a pass instead of shooting it, or oh, the team just didn't do this or that in general. And it's so easy to get caught into that mindset. It's so easy to get caught down that rabbit hole, just because probably just something is in human nature. Just it's so easy just to nitpick those little things. We need to start flipping that mindset and saying, hey, yeah, I know I gave up this goal, but did you see this really nice glove save that I made? Did you see this really nice movement that I did in the net? Hey, did you see how I read this play before this other play happened that resulted in a goal? Start nitpicking your game, but start nitpicking your game that presents a positive outcome, right? Because sorry, Nathan, just if you start focusing on the pros rather than the cons with it, then that'll start bringing yourself into a good mindset. So you start feeling good about the game. So like, yeah, I didn't do well with this. Coach and I worked on this. I worked on this in practice, but I still feel confident in my ability to do X, Y, Z. Right. So we need to start flipping that mindset of little Timmy just absolutely sucked in net today for whatever reason. Yeah, but did you see this one really nice save that he had? You know,
Yeah.
it's not a weight of percentages where, oh, he did 90% of the things wrong and he only did 10% of the things right. Well, let's focus on that 10%. What in that 10% did he do right?
Yeah. And I was bad for that when I played, and I'll admit I've been bad for that when I've coached too. And that's one thing I think I've really tried to change in my approach, and it's still a work in progress. But
Well, I had that happen a lot with the
yeah,
last two teams that I was with. And that's just more so a result of coaches who were players who don't understand the position of goaltending.
no,
But again, it's oh well, hey, there was this 2-on-1 or this goalie led in this really soft goal. Yeah, okay, but did you see him make this really nice stick save, or did you see him
yeah,
do this really nice sequence across when he was moving in his net?
yeah,
It's not always just about the shots on net. It's the other minuscule stuff around it. That's why I don't pay attention a whole lot to save percentage and goals against average when it comes to stats. I don't. I believe in the stat. I think they're a good reference point, but I don't think that they're honestly the be all end all because the numbers don't tell the full picture.
yeah. Well, and that's just it. I mean, we all know we've been there. Something looks like an absolute groaner from the stands, but
Mm-hmm.
what they don't see is that you took that quick second to look off for the backdoor threat, but you didn't notice that the guy was turning to shoot right then, or it clips a shin pad and nobody really sees it, but you knew that it threw you off or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And even still, sometimes we just make mistakes and things go in, and it's okay to understand that goals are going to go in, and it's okay to understand that we're not always going to do things the right way. But that goes back to when we talked about the battle and the compete and playing out rebounds. Sometimes it's not going to be pretty, and sometimes we just got to do what we can, right? And at the end of the day, we can't change what has already happened. And that's with the mindset thing. We got to understand that it's all about what's in front of us. And yes, after the game or after practice, we can always go back and reflect and say, okay, I know I did this wrong. I know I did this wrong, and I can work on that next time at practice. But when you're in the moment, it's a moot point. You can't change the fact that you let in the shot from the far, face off dot like you're Mike Smith against Calgary in the second round of the playoffs, right? Like he let in a goal with 6 minutes
Mm-hmm.
left to tie the game from the other team's end,
Mm-hmm.
and yet the Oilers still won that game, right? He didn't let in anything else because could he control that went in anymore? No. And that's kind of, these habits that we talk about. You want to make sure that you're developing habits that help you get into the right mindset, whether it is your pregame routine, whether it is journaling, whether it is visualization or positive self-talk. We need to get into that mindset of, yes, I belong here. Yes, I'm going to make mistakes and that's okay. Yes, I can always be learning and all of this stuff, right? Take one thing that I'm a big fan of is taking small wins and compounding them, right? Like that's the beauty of like compound interest for anyone who's in finance, right? Is if your investment gets, if it increases 1% every day, by the time you reach, 5-10 years, you're going to be rich, right? Because it's compounding. And that's the same thing when we talk about, our mindset. If we can take small wins every day, and that's going to compound to make us a better athlete, a better goalie, a better person, right? So find something to work on each day, just one small thing. Check that off the box that you accomplished that, get your small win, and do that every day, right? And build that foundation, compound those results, and you'd be surprised at what'll happen a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road if you can focus on these small wins, right?
I just reached out to Pete Fry on Facebook, see if he's see if he'd be willing. I think that's I think there's more conversation on that, and I think if we can bring that to our listeners here, I mean, like you get it on 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 Pete's website and his social media and in Goal Magazine as well. But I think it'd be really interesting to have him come on DIY
Yeah.
and
Well,
uh, and
I'll
do that. So
I'll give him the hard hitting questions that nobody asked him.
well,
So
well, hey, I've reached out to him for you, so that's half the battle right there.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
just again, like we could probably go in the mindset for a whole another hour here, and I think just the last thing that maybe I could talk about, and again, I'll be a hypocrite on this as well, is that you don't want to be as goaltenders, we don't want to realistically be showing our emotion a whole lot. Um, it's easier said than done. I was
I
bad
was gonna
for it.
say tell that to Tuukka Rask.
Tuukka Rask or Jordan Bennington or all those guys. Um, it's because again, I was bad for it to smack the stick, like purposely trying to break the stick over the post. You bang the boards, you shout some expletives and all that, and all that's showing is that like it's showing your coach that you're in your own head and you're losing confidence in yourself and at the risk of getting pulled. And then what you're doing is you're showing the other team that, hey, we're in his head. He's vulnerable now. That's one thing that we don't want to be as goaltenders is we don't want to be showing that we're vulnerable. And so that's the biggest thing there. So if we're able to find a way to curb our emotions and not necessarily not show any emotion, but we don't want to be giving off the impression of any negative emotions. I guess is the point that I'm trying to be driving at there.
Yeah, that even keel.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we'll wrap things up here. I know at times we kind of got off the rails a little bit, got a little rambly and whatever. Connor seems to have that effect, but
I do. All right, fine. All right. I'll take that. I
yeah,
like I like I like the sound of my own
yeah,
voice sometimes. So
yeah, that's okay. I just I blame him, blame it on him being a goalie. So,
all right, yeah, yeah. Not
but
like
yeah,
anybody else knows that.
yeah. Well, just to wrap things up, though, I wanted the big takeaway from today just to be that, you know, the the foundation of everything we do, the success that we have, and this goes beyond the crease too. Like this goes for anything that we're kind of doing in our lives, but especially for goaltending, the quality of our habits is gonna put out the same quality of our performance. So if you guys can develop good habits that work for you, that help you to reach your goals and to be successful, you guys have a much better chance at having a high performance when you get on the ice and into the crease and make those steps in your career, right? And it doesn't matter if you're a U7 goalie playing tier 3 in the first year and you're trying to make the U9 tier 1 team, or if you're an 18-year-old playing major junior trying to go the NHL route, or if you're a beer leaguer who's in Division 8 trying to go up to Division 6, it really doesn't matter what step you're trying to attain. It's all about, it's all the same across the board, and it's about making those solid habits to become more successful.
Yeah, yeah. Well said.
All right. So that being said, yeah, well, as always, guys, we'll have the show notes up. They'll be at the DIYgoalie.com/pod014. So pod 014, because this will be the 14th episode. And it's kind of
Wow.
crazy that we're already at episode 14. We've already made it through our first fiscal quarter of podcast episodes. But no, we very much appreciate you guys tuning in and listening in and putting up with us. As always, too, we're we're open to listener questions. I'm hoping to get a few put together so that we can have a Q&A type episode down the road. So if you guys want to put in a question, whether it's audio and we can throw your voice on the podcast, or whether it's just a text question and we can read it out, doesn't matter. But you can do that at the DIYgoalie.com/podcast. And if you have anything else that you want to reach out to us for, you can do it at info@thediygoalie.com. If you guys have, guests you want to see or topics you want covered, let us know. And as always, the DIYgoalie.com for any articles, drills, videos. We've got the merch. We've got the goaltending breakdown course. All of that's available there. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Share the show with a friend. Leave us a review. Leave us a comment. If I get enough 2-star reviews on Connor's performance, I'll stop bringing him on. So
maybe it's not the guest. Maybe it's the host.
Could be the host.
Yeah.
Very much could be the host. So, but no, much appreciated for Connor joining us again, and getting his insight. And it's always good to kind of have somebody to bounce stuff off of too, instead of just listening to me drone on for, a whole hour.
Yeah. And just best thing is that only a goaltender knows what a goalie goes through. So it's whether you reach out to Nathan or you reach out to myself or anybody within our circle at True North Goaltending, or just even having a chat online. I mean, there's the Facebook groups and the Instagram accounts, and maybe not Twitter, but just there's a whole bunch of resources out there. And so it absolutely does not hurt to to reach out, bounce some ideas off of, just kind of get a different perspective that you didn't have before.
Yeah, the goalie community is a tight-knit one, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll sign off for today, and we'll touch base with you guys next week. And thanks again for tuning in. Thanks